There is a quiet fear that lives inside almost every human heart, though few people speak about it openly. It is not simply the fear of wrinkles, grey hair, or a body that no longer moves as easily as it once did. It is the fear of growing older and wondering whether life is slowly slipping away. Many people spend years trying to avoid this reality. They search for ways to stay young, hold on to the past, or ignore the passage of time altogether. Yet no matter where we live or how successful we become, aging continues with every sunrise and every sunset. The Buddha never taught us to fear this truth. Instead, he invited us to understand it. He showed that growing older is not the true source of suffering. The real suffering comes from resisting what has always been a natural part of life. From the moment we are born, change quietly begins. A child becomes a teenager. A teenager becomes an adult. An adult slowly grows older. This process has never paused for anyone, not for kings, not for wealthy merchants, not for great scholars, and not even for the Buddha himself. Everything that is born will eventually grow old. Everything that comes together will one day separate. Everything that begins will eventually come to an end. These truths may sound simple, yet they contain some of the deepest wisdom in Buddhism. We suffer because we expect permanence in a world that has always been impermanent. We hope our youth will last forever. We hope our loved ones will never leave. We hope our health will remain unchanged. But life continues flowing according to its own nature, and every attempt to stop that flow only creates unnecessary pain. Many people believe that getting older means losing everything that matters. They fear losing their beauty, their strength, their independence, or their place in society. They begin comparing themselves to younger people and quietly wonder whether their best years have already passed. This comparison slowly steals the joy from the present moment. Instead of appreciating the wisdom gained through experience, they focus only on what has been lost. The Buddha encouraged us to see life differently. He reminded us that every stage of life carries its own unique gifts. Youth brings energy, but age brings understanding. Youth often moves quickly, while age learns to move wisely. Youth seeks answers from the world, while age gradually discovers that many answers have always existed within. Imagine a magnificent oak tree standing in the middle of a peaceful valley. During spring, it is covered with fresh green leaves. In summer, it offers shade to everyone who rests beneath its branches. During autumn, its leaves change into beautiful shades of gold before gently falling to the earth. Winter arrives, and its branches appear bare against the cold sky. Yet no one looks at the tree in winter and says it has failed. No one believes it has become less valuable because its appearance has changed. Every season has its own beauty, and every season prepares the tree for the next. Human life follows the same rhythm. Childhood, adulthood, and old age are not enemies of one another. They are different seasons of the same beautiful journey. The Buddha often encouraged people to reflect upon aging, not to create fear, but to awaken wisdom. When we remember that our bodies will not remain young forever, we begin valuing each day more deeply. We become less interested in wasting time on resentment, jealousy, or endless competition. Suddenly, the small arguments that once seemed so important begin losing their power. The desire to impress others slowly fades. We realize that peace is far more valuable than pride, and kindness leaves a much greater legacy than success alone. Aging has a remarkable way of revealing what truly matters. One of the greatest misconceptions about growing older is the belief that happiness belongs only to the young. Society often celebrates youth while quietly treating old age as something to fear or avoid. But Buddhist wisdom offers a completely different perspective. The happiest people are not necessarily the youngest. They are often those who have learned how to let go. They understand that life cannot be controlled, that people will come and go, and that every experience carries something worth learning. Because they no longer spend all their energy fighting reality, they discover a kind of peace that cannot be found through youth alone. Think about the people you have met whose presence immediately made you feel calm. They may not have been the wealthiest or the most physically attractive. They may have had grey hair, slower steps, and faces marked by the passing years. Yet there was something deeply comforting about them. Their words were gentle. Their smiles were sincere. They listened without judgment. Their peace did not come from looking young. It came from living wisely. They had learned lessons that only time could teach. Every hardship had softened their hearts instead of hardening them. Every disappointment had become a source of compassion. They had discovered that true beauty shines from a peaceful mind, far more than from a youthful appearance. The Buddha taught that the body naturally grows older, but the mind can continue becoming wiser, kinder, and more peaceful throughout every stage of life. This is perhaps one of the most hopeful teachings in all of Buddhism. While we cannot stop time, we can choose how we meet it. We can spend our later years fearing every change, or we can embrace each season with gratitude and awareness. Growing older does not have to mean growing bitter. It can become a journey of greater freedom, deeper understanding, and lasting inner peace. In this reflection, we will explore 8 powerful changes inspired by Buddhist wisdom that can transform the way we experience aging. These are not complicated techniques or secret formulas. They are timeless principles that have guided people toward peace for centuries. As you listen, you may discover that the greatest gift of growing older is not having more years behind you, but having more wisdom within you. And perhaps, by the end of this journey, you will begin seeing aging not as something to fear, but as one of life's most beautiful opportunities to awaken. The first change that brings peace as we grow older is learning to let go of what we cannot control. This may sound simple, yet it is one of the most difficult lessons for the human mind to accept. For most of our lives, we try to control everything around us. We want our health to remain unchanged. We want our loved ones to stay close forever. We want our plans to unfold exactly as we imagined. Even when life repeatedly shows us that change is inevitable, we continue believing that if we worry enough, plan carefully enough, or work harder than everyone else, we can somehow prevent uncertainty from entering our lives. The Buddha saw this struggle clearly. He taught that suffering is not created because life changes. Suffering is created because we demand that life should not change. As we grow older, this lesson becomes impossible to ignore. The body begins moving differently. Recovery takes longer. Friends and family members move away or pass on. Children build lives of their own. Careers eventually come to an end. Every season reminds us that control has always been limited. At first, this realization may feel frightening, but the Buddha invited us to see it as a doorway to freedom rather than despair. When you stop fighting against the natural flow of life, an enormous weight quietly leaves your shoulders. You no longer waste precious energy trying to control the uncontrollable. Instead, you begin focusing on what has always been within your reach, your thoughts, your actions, your attitude, and the kindness you bring into each day. Imagine standing on the shore watching the ocean. You cannot command the waves to stop rising, nor can you tell the tide exactly when to come in or go out. The sea follows its own rhythm, regardless of your wishes. Yet you can choose whether to stand peacefully beside it or become angry every time another wave reaches the shore. Life behaves much like the ocean. Some days are calm and beautiful, others are filled with unexpected storms. Trying to control every wave only leads to exhaustion. Learning to move with the tide allows the heart to remain steady even when circumstances continue changing. The second powerful change is letting go of comparison. This habit quietly steals peace from people of every age, but it often becomes even stronger as the years pass. Many older adults begin looking back at their lives and comparing themselves with others. One person accumulated more wealth, another traveled the world. Someone else seems healthier, happier, or surrounded by a larger family. The mind begins asking painful questions. Did I make the wrong choices? Did I waste my life? Could I have become more successful? Without realizing it, comparison transforms a life filled with blessings into one that appears filled with lack. The Buddha understood that comparison is rooted in attachment to the ego. The mind constantly measures itself against others because it believes happiness depends upon being ahead. But there will always be someone richer, younger, stronger, or more accomplished. If your peace depends upon winning those comparisons, peace will always remain out of reach. The moment one comparison ends, another begins. This endless race has no finish line because it is created entirely by the restless mind. Think about a garden filled with many different flowers. Roses bloom differently from lilies. Sunflowers grow taller than daisies. Cherry blossoms appear during one season, while lotus flowers bloom during another. None of these flowers compete with one another. They simply express their own nature when the conditions are right. The garden becomes beautiful precisely because every flower is different. Human life is no different. Every person receives a unique path, different lessons, different challenges, and different blessings. Comparing your journey to someone else's is like asking a lotus why it does not bloom like a rose. Both are beautiful because they were never meant to become the same. As people grow older, one of the greatest sources of contentment comes from appreciating the life they have actually lived instead of grieving the life they imagine they should have lived. Gratitude begins replacing regret. You start recognizing that every experience, even the painful ones, contributed something valuable. The mistakes taught humility, the hardships built resilience, the losses deepened compassion. Even the dreams that never came true helped shape the wisdom you now carry. Suddenly, your life no longer feels incomplete. It feels uniquely yours. The Buddha encouraged his followers to practice mindful gratitude because gratitude naturally weakens comparison. When you become fully aware of the blessings already present in your life, there is less room for envy. A peaceful morning becomes enough. A meaningful conversation becomes enough. Good health for one more day becomes enough. The smile of a grandchild, the sound of birds outside the window, the warmth of sunlight across your face, these ordinary moments slowly become extraordinary because you stop measuring them against someone else's life. Instead, you simply receive them with an open heart. Perhaps this is one of the greatest gifts of aging. With time comes the opportunity to stop chasing an imaginary version of success and begin appreciating what truly matters. The people who age most peacefully are rarely those who controlled every outcome or outperformed everyone around them. They are the ones who learned to release unnecessary struggles. They accepted what they could not change, cherished what they had, and stopped measuring their worth through comparison. In doing so, they discovered a quiet joy that no achievement could ever provide. And once the heart learns these two powerful changes, letting go of control and letting go of comparison, growing older no longer feels like losing life. Instead, it begins to feel like finally understanding it. As people grow older, many discover a surprising truth. The things they spent decades chasing no longer seem as important as they once did. The larger house that required endless maintenance, the expensive possessions that brought only temporary excitement, the endless race for recognition and success, all of it begins to lose its power. What once felt essential gradually reveals itself to be unnecessary. This quiet realization reflects one of the deepest teachings of the Buddha. Peace is not created by adding more to life, but by needing less from it. The third powerful change that helps us age peacefully is learning to simplify our lives. Simplicity is not about living with nothing. It is about removing everything that steals our attention from what truly matters. The modern world constantly tells us that happiness can be purchased, achieved, or displayed. We are encouraged to collect more possessions, chase bigger goals, and compare ourselves with people who appear more successful. Yet despite living in an age of extraordinary convenience, many people feel more anxious than ever before. Their homes become filled with objects they rarely use. Their schedules become filled with commitments they no longer enjoy. Their minds become filled with worries that never become reality. Instead of creating freedom, abundance often creates another form of attachment. The Buddha observed this long before the modern world existed. He understood that the more tightly we cling to possessions, status, and external success, the more fearful we become of losing them. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack during a long journey. At first, the weight may seem manageable, but as the hours pass, every unnecessary item inside becomes another burden pressing against your shoulders. Eventually you stop, open the bag, and begin removing things you never truly needed. With each item left behind, the walk becomes lighter and easier. Life works in much the same way. Many of us continue carrying old resentments, unrealistic expectations, endless obligations, and material desires long after they have stopped serving us. We believe we must keep holding on simply because we always have. Yet the moment we begin letting go, we discover that peace was never hidden beneath more possessions. It was hidden beneath less weight. Simplicity also changes the way we spend our time. When we are younger, we often believe we have endless tomorrows. We postpone meaningful conversations, delay moments of rest, and sacrifice our health for achievements that seem urgent. As the years pass, we begin realizing that time is life's most precious gift. The Buddha repeatedly reminded his followers to remain mindful because every moment that passes can never be recovered. Simplicity allows us to return to what truly deserves our attention. Instead of filling every day with unnecessary noise, we create space for quiet reflection, meaningful relationships, acts of kindness, and gratitude. These simple moments become far more valuable than the endless pursuit of more. The fourth powerful change is learning to protect your inner peace. Perhaps nothing becomes more important with age than the quality of your own mind. A peaceful heart is worth far more than winning every argument or pleasing every person you meet. Yet many people unknowingly give away their peace every single day. They allow criticism to ruin their mood. They carry resentment for years. They replay old conversations long after everyone else has forgotten them. They worry endlessly about events they cannot control. Little by little, these habits steal the calm they have spent a lifetime searching for. The Buddha taught that the mind is like a clear lake. When left undisturbed, it reflects everything with remarkable clarity, but when constantly stirred by anger, fear, jealousy, or endless desire, the water becomes cloudy. It is impossible to see clearly through disturbed water, just as it is impossible to make wise decisions with a disturbed mind. Protecting your peace means becoming more selective about what you allow into your heart. It means recognizing that not every criticism deserves your attention, not every disagreement requires your response, and not every problem belongs to you. Think about an old temple standing quietly on the side of a mountain. Seasons come and go. Storms arrive and disappear. Travelers visit, pray, and continue on their journey. Through it all, the temple remains still. It does not chase after those who leave, nor does it resist the changing weather. It simply remains grounded in its purpose. The Buddha encouraged us to cultivate this same inner stability. When your peace comes from within, rather than from external circumstances, the changing world loses much of its power to disturb you. One practical way to protect your peace is by carefully choosing the voices you listen to. As we grow older, we no longer need to participate in every conflict or respond to every opinion. We learn that silence is often wiser than proving a point. We begin spending more time with people who inspire kindness, honesty, and compassion rather than those who constantly create negativity. We recognize that the environment surrounding us quietly shapes the condition of our minds. Just as a healthy garden flourishes with good soil and clean water, a peaceful heart grows stronger when surrounded by wisdom and calm. Another important part of protecting your peace is learning to forgive, not because others always deserve forgiveness, but because your own heart deserves freedom. Holding on to anger is like carrying a heavy stone every day, believing that someone else is becoming tired from its weight. In reality, only you continue carrying it. Forgiveness does not erase the past or excuse harmful actions. It simply allows you to stop reliving yesterday's pain. The Buddha understood that a heart free from resentment has far more space for joy, compassion, and gratitude. As these two changes take root, life begins to feel remarkably lighter. Simplicity removes unnecessary burdens, while inner peace protects what is truly valuable. Together they create a way of living that is not dependent upon wealth, status, or perfect circumstances. Instead, happiness grows from a quiet heart that knows when to let go, when to remain silent, and when to appreciate the simple beauty already present in each passing day. This is the kind of wealth that continues growing with age, and unlike material possessions, it can never be taken away. Perhaps no teaching in Buddhism is more important than the understanding of impermanence. The Buddha observed that everything in existence is constantly changing. Every breath begins and ends. Every sunrise is followed by sunset. Seasons come and go without asking for permission. Flowers bloom beautifully before their petals gently fall to the ground. Even the strongest mountains slowly change over thousands of years. Change is not an exception to life, it is life itself. Yet, despite living in a world where everything changes, the human mind continues, hoping that certain things will remain exactly as they are forever. This quiet resistance becomes one of the greatest causes of suffering, especially as we grow older. When we are young, impermanence feels distant. The future seems endless, and the passing years appear almost invisible. But with age comes a deeper awareness of time. We notice the grey hairs that were not there before. We realize that children have become adults. Friends we laughed with decades ago begin disappearing from our lives. Our parents grow older, and one day we become the oldest generation in the family ourselves. These changes can feel overwhelming if we believe they should never happen. But the Buddha invited us to see them differently. He taught that suffering is not caused by aging itself. It is caused by wishing that aging did not exist. Imagine standing beside a river. You place your hand into the flowing water, then lift it out a few seconds later. The water touching your hand is already different from the water that was there a moment ago. The river never remains the same, yet we still recognize it as the same river. Human life follows this same pattern. Every day our bodies change. Every experience shapes our minds. Every conversation leaves a small impression upon our hearts. We are constantly becoming someone new, even if the changes are too gradual to notice. Instead of fearing this truth, the Buddha encouraged us to embrace it. Change is what allows wounds to heal, wisdom to grow, and new beginnings to appear after painful endings. One of the greatest gifts of accepting impermanence is that it teaches us to appreciate the present moment. When we understand that nothing lasts forever, we stop taking ordinary moments for granted. A shared meal with family becomes precious. A quiet walk beneath the morning sky feels meaningful. The laughter of a friend becomes something to cherish rather than assume will always be there. Impermanence does not make life less beautiful. It makes life infinitely more valuable because we recognize that every experience is unique and cannot be repeated in exactly the same way again. Many people spend their later years trying to recreate the past. They constantly compare today with how life used to be. They remember younger bodies, larger families gathered around the table, busy careers, or moments they believe were happier than the present. While memories are beautiful, living inside them prevents us from experiencing the gifts of today. The Buddha never encouraged people to reject the past. He simply reminded them not to become trapped by it. The past has already fulfilled its purpose. It has shaped who we are. But peace can only be found in the moment we are living now. Think about the autumn leaves falling from a great tree. At first glance, someone might see only loss. The leaves that once covered every branch now drift gently toward the earth. But nature understands something the human mind often forgets. Those falling leaves nourish the soil, preparing the tree for another spring. What appears to be an ending quietly becomes the beginning of something new. Our lives unfold in much the same way. Every ending creates space for another lesson, another relationship, another opportunity to grow in wisdom. Without change, there could be no healing. Without endings, there could be no new beginnings. The Buddha also taught that accepting impermanence helps free us from unnecessary fear. Much of anxiety comes from trying to preserve what cannot be preserved forever. We fear losing health, possessions, relationships, or even our own identity. But when we deeply understand that change has always been part of existence, fear begins to soften. We stop treating change as an enemy and begin recognizing it as a natural teacher. Every wrinkle becomes evidence of years lived with courage. Every scar becomes proof that healing is possible. Every goodbye reminds us to love more deeply while we still have the chance. There is a quiet peace that belongs only to those who no longer argue with reality. They understand that every person they meet is a temporary companion on life's journey. Some remain for decades, while others stay only briefly. Both have something valuable to teach. They understand that possessions are meant to be used, not worshipped. They understand that success rises and falls, just as failure eventually passes away. Most importantly, they understand that the body may grow older, but the heart can continue becoming wiser, gentler, and more compassionate until the very end of life. Perhaps this is why some elderly people radiate such remarkable peace. They have stopped expecting life to remain unchanged. They no longer cling desperately to youth or mourn every passing season. Instead, they welcome each stage of life with humility and gratitude. They know that every sunrise is a gift, every conversation is temporary, and every breath is precious. Rather than creating sadness, this understanding fills them with appreciation. They no longer waste time on unnecessary conflict because they know how quickly time passes. They forgive more easily, love more openly, and find joy in simple moments that many people overlook. Accepting impermanence does not remove all pain, but it transforms the way we carry it. Instead of resisting life's natural rhythm, we begin flowing with it. We discover that peace has never come from holding on forever. It comes from learning to let each moment arrive, fully experience it with gratitude, and gently release it when its time has passed. In doing so, we find a freedom that no passing year can ever take away. As people grow older, they often realize that happiness has very little to do with how much they own, and almost everything to do with how they see their lives. Two people may have experienced similar hardships, yet one becomes bitter while the other becomes deeply grateful. One spends years focusing on everything that has been lost, while the other quietly treasures everything that still remains. The difference is not found in their circumstances, it is found in the condition of their minds. This is why the sixth powerful change is learning to practice gratitude every single day. Gratitude is one of the simplest practices in Buddhism, yet it has the remarkable ability to transform the way we experience every stage of life. The human mind has a natural tendency to notice what is missing. Even after receiving countless blessings, it quickly shifts its attention toward the next desire or the next problem. We often forget that there was once a time when we prayed for many of the things we now take for granted: a healthy body, a safe home, a loving family, enough food to eat, a peaceful morning, the opportunity to wake up and experience another day. These ordinary gifts become invisible because they are familiar. The Buddha encouraged people to awaken from this habit of unconscious living. He reminded them that gratitude is not created by extraordinary circumstances. It is created by extraordinary awareness of ordinary moments. Imagine holding a small candle inside a dark room. The candle is not large, yet it completely changes the atmosphere. Gratitude works in much the same way. It does not erase life's difficulties, but it brings enough light to help us see beyond them. A grateful heart notices blessings that an anxious mind completely overlooks. Instead of asking why life has become difficult, gratitude asks what beauty still remains. It notices the warmth of sunlight through a window, the laughter of a grandchild, the comfort of an old friend, the taste of a simple meal, or the quiet peace of an evening spent in silence. These moments may seem small, but together they create a rich and meaningful life. One of the greatest gifts of gratitude is that it frees us from endless regret. Many older adults spend years wishing they had made different decisions. They replay old mistakes, missed opportunities, and words they wish they had spoken. While reflection can bring wisdom, living inside regret only steals the present moment. The Buddha taught that every experience, whether joyful or painful, contributes to our awakening if we are willing to learn from it. Instead of asking, "Why didn't my life turn out differently?" gratitude gently asks, "What has this life taught me?" That simple change in perspective allows even painful memories to become sources of wisdom rather than lifelong burdens. The seventh powerful change is choosing compassion instead of anger. As the years pass, every person accumulates reasons to become resentful. We experience betrayal, disappointment, unfair treatment, and loss. Without realizing it, we begin carrying these experiences like heavy stones inside the heart. Some people hold on to old anger for decades, believing they are punishing those who hurt them. Yet the Buddha taught that anger rarely harms the person it is directed toward. More often, it quietly harms the one who continues carrying it. A heart filled with resentment has very little room left for peace. Imagine carrying a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. Before it ever reaches another person, it burns the hand that refuses to let it go. This was one of the Buddha's most powerful lessons about anger. Every moment spent feeding resentment is another moment taken away from your own happiness. Forgiveness does not mean pretending that painful events never happened. It does not mean allowing harmful behavior to continue. Instead, forgiveness is the decision to stop allowing yesterday's wounds to control today's peace. Compassion begins when we recognize that every person carries struggles we cannot fully see. The person who speaks harshly may be carrying years of pain. The friend who disappointed you may have been acting from fear rather than cruelty. Even those who have made serious mistakes are often driven by confusion, attachment, or ignorance. This understanding does not excuse harmful actions, but it prevents hatred from taking root in our own hearts. The Buddha taught that hatred never disappears through more hatred. It is only dissolved through compassion and understanding. As people grow older, many discover that kindness becomes far more satisfying than being right. Winning arguments no longer feels as important as preserving meaningful relationships. Pride slowly gives way to humility because experience teaches that everyone makes mistakes. We begin listening more carefully, judging less quickly, and speaking more gently. These changes are not signs of weakness, they are signs of maturity. They reflect a heart that has learned what truly deserves its energy and what is better released. There is something deeply beautiful about an elderly person whose face carries lines formed by decades of smiling rather than years of bitterness. Their presence feels peaceful because they have stopped collecting reasons to be angry. They greet others with warmth, speak with patience, and respond to life's challenges with quiet wisdom. Their greatest achievement is not measured by wealth or status, but by the calm they bring into every room they enter. This kind of peace cannot be purchased or inherited. It is cultivated day after day through gratitude, forgiveness, and compassion. When gratitude fills the heart, there is less room for complaint. When compassion replaces anger, there is less room for suffering. Together, these two changes transform the experience of aging. Instead of looking backward with regret or forward with fear, we begin living each day with appreciation for what is here now. We discover that the richest life is not the one that possesses the most, but the one that loves the most. And perhaps that is exactly what the Buddha hoped every person would discover before the end of their journey, that a grateful and compassionate heart remains forever young, no matter how many birthdays have passed. The final change may be the most important of all, because every other lesson naturally leads to it. After learning to let go of what you cannot control, stop comparing yourself with others. Simplify your life. Protect your inner peace. Accept impermanence. Practice gratitude. And choose compassion over anger. One profound realization quietly begins to emerge. The happiness you have been searching for was never waiting somewhere outside of you. It has always existed within your own heart. The Buddha spent his life guiding people toward this understanding because he knew that as long as we believe happiness depends entirely on external circumstances, lasting peace will always remain just beyond our reach. Most of us spend many years believing that happiness will arrive after achieving one more goal. We imagine that once we earn enough money, find the perfect relationship, retire from work, or solve every problem, then we will finally be able to relax. Yet life has a way of proving otherwise. Every achievement brings new responsibilities. Every possession requires care. Every joyful moment eventually changes. If happiness depends completely on things that are constantly changing, then happiness itself becomes fragile. This is why so many people continue feeling restless even after accomplishing everything they once dreamed about. The Buddha gently pointed out that the problem was never the world itself. The problem was expecting the changing world to provide permanent peace. Imagine searching everywhere for a pair of glasses while becoming increasingly frustrated, only to discover they have been resting on your face the entire time. We often treat happiness in exactly the same way. We search through success, relationships, possessions, and recognition without realizing that the quiet contentment we long for begins inside our own minds. External blessings certainly make life more comfortable, but they cannot create the stable peace that Buddhist wisdom describes. That peace grows from awareness, acceptance, and the ability to remain centered regardless of changing circumstances. Growing older offers a unique opportunity to discover this truth. As the years pass, many of the things that once seemed incredibly important begin losing their hold over us. We slowly realize that expensive possessions cannot replace meaningful relationships. Endless achievements cannot compensate for an anxious mind. Physical appearance cannot determine the value of a compassionate heart. The lessons of time gently strip away many illusions, revealing what has always mattered most. This is why some older people radiate extraordinary peace, despite having very little by society's standards. They have discovered an inner richness that cannot be measured by wealth or status. The Buddha often encouraged his followers to spend time in quiet reflection. Not because silence itself was magical, but because a quiet mind allows us to hear truths that constant distraction keeps hidden. When we slow down, we begin noticing how often our happiness has been controlled by conditions outside ourselves. A compliment lifts our mood. Criticism ruins our day. Good news brings excitement. Bad news creates anxiety. Without realizing it, We hand over the keys to our peace again and again. But true freedom begins when we stop asking the outside world to decide how we feel. Instead, we cultivate a steady mind that remains balanced through both joy and difficulty. Think about the moon reflected on the surface of a calm lake. When the water is still, the reflection appears bright and clear. But when the lake is disturbed by strong winds, the reflection becomes broken and distorted, even though the moon itself has not changed at all. Our minds work in the same way. The peace within us is always present, but it becomes difficult to recognize when the mind is constantly stirred by fear, attachment, regret, or endless desire. Meditation, mindfulness, and self-awareness do not create inner peace. They simply calm the surface enough for us to recognize the peace that has always been there. Finding happiness within yourself does not mean isolating yourself from others or pretending you no longer need love and companionship. Human connection remains one of life's greatest blessings. The difference is that relationships become less rather than desperate attempts to fill an inner emptiness. You appreciate people without clinging to them. You enjoy success without allowing it to define your worth. You experience loss without believing that life has lost all meaning. This quiet independence creates healthier relationships because your happiness is no longer a burden that someone else must carry for you. Perhaps this is why the happiest older people often possess a gentle simplicity that younger generations admire. They no longer feel the need to prove themselves. They laugh more easily. They forgive more quickly. They enjoy small pleasures without constantly searching for something bigger. They understand that another peaceful sunrise is a gift, another conversation with a loved one is a blessing, and another ordinary day is something never to be taken for granted. Their joy does not come from having perfect lives. It comes from having peaceful hearts. As this final change takes root, aging itself begins to look completely different. Instead of seeing every passing year as something lost, you begin seeing it as another opportunity to deepen wisdom. Every challenge becomes another teacher. Every season offers another lesson. The body may become slower, but the heart becomes calmer. The face may show the passing of time, but the spirit grows brighter with understanding. This is the quiet beauty the Buddha wanted us to discover. Growing older is not the journey away from happiness. It is the journey toward the kind of happiness that nothing in the outside world can ever take away. And once that truth is deeply understood, every remaining year becomes less about counting time and more about living each moment with awareness, gratitude, compassion, and lasting inner peace. As we reach the end of this journey, it becomes clear that aging is not the enemy we once imagined. The real challenge has never been the passing of time. It has always been the way we respond to it. For much of our lives, we are taught to measure ourselves by what we achieve, what we own, how we look, and how others see us. We believe that youth is something to protect at all costs, and that growing older somehow means losing value. But the Buddha offered a completely different vision of life. He taught that every passing year can become an opportunity to awaken, to understand ourselves more deeply, and to discover a peace that cannot be found through external success alone. When we look back over the 8 changes we have explored together, a beautiful pattern begins to appear. Letting go of what you cannot control frees your mind from unnecessary worry. Stopping comparison allows you to appreciate your own unique journey. Simplifying your life removes the burdens that distract you from what truly matters. Protecting your inner peace teaches you that not every battle deserves your attention. Accepting impermanence helps you stop resisting the natural rhythm of life. Practicing gratitude fills ordinary moments with extraordinary meaning. Choosing compassion over anger releases the weight of resentment. Finally, finding happiness within yourself reveals a truth that has been quietly waiting all along, that lasting peace has never depended on anything outside your own heart. None of these changes happen overnight. They are not destinations that we reach once and never revisit again. They are daily practices, quiet choices made over and over again. Some days you will remember them easily. Other days you may fall back into old habits of worrying, comparing, or clinging. That is perfectly natural. The Buddha never expected perfection. He simply encouraged steady awareness. Every time you notice yourself becoming attached, every time you choose gratitude instead of complaint, every time you respond with kindness instead of anger, you are already walking the path of wisdom. Progress is not measured by never making mistakes. It is measured by returning to awareness each time you lose your way. Imagine climbing a mountain that has no finish line. At first, this idea may sound discouraging, but then you realize something important. The purpose of the climb was never only to reach the top. The purpose was to become stronger, wiser, and more present with every step. Life unfolds in exactly the same way. We often become so focused on reaching the next milestone that we forget the quiet transformation taking place within us. Every challenge teaches patience. Every disappointment strengthens resilience. Every act of kindness expands the heart. Without noticing it, we slowly become the person we once hoped to be. One of the greatest blessings of growing older is the ability to see life with greater clarity. When you are young, the future often feels urgent. You believe every decision must be perfect, and every opportunity must be seized immediately. But with time comes perspective. You begin realizing that many things you once worried about were never worth your peace. Arguments that once seemed important become meaningless. Possessions that once felt essential lose their appeal. You discover that the moments you treasure most are often the simplest ones. A quiet cup of tea in the morning, a conversation with someone you love, the sound of rain outside your window, or the comfort of watching the sun set after another ordinary day. Wisdom teaches us that life's greatest treasures were never hidden in extraordinary events. They have always been present in the ordinary moments we were too busy to notice. The Buddha reminded us that every human life eventually reaches its final chapter. At first, this thought may seem unsettling, but it carries a profound invitation. When we remember that our time is limited, we stop postponing what truly matters. We become quicker to forgive, slower to judge, and more willing to express love while we still have the opportunity. We stop waiting for the perfect moment to appreciate life because we understand that this moment is already enough. The awareness of mortality does not make life darker. It makes it brighter because every sunrise becomes more precious when we remember it cannot last forever. There is something deeply inspiring about meeting an elderly person whose heart has remained gentle despite everything they have experienced. They have known loss, disappointment, illness, and uncertainty, yet they continue greeting the world with kindness. Their wisdom is not found in the number of books they have read or the wealth they have accumulated. It is reflected in their calm presence, their patient smile, and their ability to remain grateful even when life is imperfect. They remind us that true success is not measured by how much we accomplish, but by the kind of person we become along the way. Perhaps this is the greatest lesson Buddhism offers about aging. Growing older is not simply about adding more years to your life. It is about adding more understanding to your heart. It is about allowing every experience, both joyful and painful, to soften your spirit instead of hardening it. It is about discovering that peace does not arrive when life finally becomes perfect. Peace arrives when you stop demanding perfection from life. So wherever you are on your journey today, remember this. You are not racing against time, you are growing through it. Every gray hair, every wrinkle, every lesson learned, and every challenge overcome tells the story of a life that has continued moving forward with courage. Instead of fearing the years ahead, welcome them with an open heart. Continue choosing gratitude over complaint, compassion over anger, simplicity over excess, and wisdom over fear. In doing so, you will discover that aging is not the slow loss of who you are. It is the gradual unveiling of who you have always been. If these Buddhist teachings have brought you comfort today, consider subscribing and joining us for more reflections on timeless wisdom. May your days be filled with mindfulness, your heart with compassion, and your journey with the quiet peace that comes from living in harmony with the truth. No matter how many years life gives you, may each one become another step toward wisdom, freedom, and lasting inner peace.